Hello, everyone. Welcome back. So far today, we've heard a lot about how people can go out into the world, solve some problems, and come up with creative solutions. So let's hear one of them. Here to present Addressing Mental Health Through Virtual Reality, please welcome the founder of Meta Wellness and mental health advocate, all the way from Orlando, Florida, Terrance Williams.
Thank you. My mental health journey started in a hospital, and we received a phone call, and it was from my grandma. My dad answered the phone and says, "Hey, Mom," and she says, "Who is this?" My dad looked puzzled. He says, It's me, your son." She says, "Son, I have no son." He says again, it's me, your son, Chris." She says, "Don't even know any Chris." And she hangs up the phone. Later that night, my grandmother passed away due to complication with Alzheimer's. My grandmother was an incredible woman, and she battled through Alzheimer's for a few years, but even through her hardest years, she was full of wisdom. She once told me, "When you're right, I'm right there with you, but when you're wrong, you're by yourself." And when I recall those words, one word comes to mind, and it's accountability. And when she passed, I felt an accountability to make an impact on mental health any way I saw possible. So you may be wondering, where does technology fall in this origin story? Well, that began at a mattress store and with a woman I'll never forget. And ironically, her name was Hope. I had the hardest times of my life at this mattress store. And trust me, I can still tell you anything you want to know about a Tempur-Pedic mattress. But what made this time of my life so different was not the fact that I was surrounded by 50 mattresses for 10 hours a day and wasn't allowed to lay on any of them. It was for another reason. And the reason was really Hope. See, Hope was my trainer, and she had dedicated 10 years of her life at this company. And every day she made my life miserable. She would yell, belittle, antagonize me. I remember making my first sale. I was so excited. I rushed over to Hope and told her what I thought was an accomplishment. Instead of congratulating me, she just yelled at me and told me to go clean the bathroom. This happened every day for months. No matter how many sales, customer recommendations, achievements I won, nothing mattered. And the emotional toll took a huge toll on me. I became overweight, obese, depressed. I was going through it all. One day, Hope received a phone call. It was from the area manager. He promoted her to area manager of another district. And the funny thing is, at this mattress store, everyone, no matter the rank, the title, the experience, all made the same amount of money. The area manager, the store manager, the training manager, all made the same amount of money. So when she got this promotion, I was puzzled. She was super ecstatic, really happy, but she would talk about how much she hated the company every day. I was baffled. How could you talk about how much you hate the company, but you're so excited when you got this promotion? I knew right there I had to make a change, and I had to find a way to do anything I could to get out of the situation. So the first thing I had to do was, I had a passion for technology, and dealing with my grandma, I saw the things with mental health, so I decided I had to put those two together and figure something out. So the first thing I wanted to do was learn more about VR, because I would hear so many different things about virtual reality, the metaverse, all these really cool things. So I wanted to learn how to make myself useful in this space. I had no experience, but what I did have was the rule of 100. The rule of 100 states that if you spend 100 hours in a year in any discipline, piano, writing, swimming, no matter what the discipline is, if you spend 100 hours in a year, that's 18 minutes a day, you'll be better than 95% of the world in that discipline. So that's what I did. I spent time every day. By the end of the year, I mastered the art. I had learned how to code and really create virtual reality simulations. And then one day I got an email titled, "Help me help save my son." It came from a concerned mother. Her son was suffering from anorexia. Anytime he brought food to his mouth to eat, he would instantly start feeling nauseous. So what I did was create a replica of her kitchen in virtual reality. And there was only one thing left to do after I created the kitchen. I created a Big Mac, because everybody loves Big Macs, right? So I created a Big Mac, and when he was able to be in this virtual reality simulation, he was able to pick up the burger and bring it to his mouth. As he bites down on the burger, it slowly disappears, as if he's actually taking real bites out of the food. After a couple months later, the mom reached out to me, and she said she's seen real progress, and her son was able to eat small foods again. But VR isn't new to mental health. In fact, we're seeing a lot of areas where it's showing great progress. like eating disorders, traumas, phobias, PTSD. In fact, one of the biggest uses for VR is treating PTSD. 1 in 3 people who suffer from a traumatic event, whether it's a car mugging, an attack, natural disaster, any type of thing when it comes to, reaction to what is going on in their mental, they suffer from PTSD. And the results can be different. They can suffer from insomnia, guilt, isolation. And that's what happened to Jimmy Castellanos. Jimmy Castellanos was a Marine who was serving his first 5 months in his tour in Iraq. During this time, he had to, one day in particular, he had to switch duties with his bunkmate, his close friend. So Jimmy had to stay back while he watched his friends and his comrades ride away on the convoy away to go pick up a TV so they can enjoy some Monday Night Football. As Jimmy watches the convoy go and off into the distance, he sees a loud flash. He hears a loud noise. It was a bomb attack. And Jimmy saw his comrade's vehicle get attacked by the enemy. Without thought, he rushes over in the convoy and he zooms toward his comrades. When he gets to the vehicle, he sees his bunkmate that he had to switch places with, dead in the back seat. And then he saw his other comrade in the same seat he was supposed to sit in, dead. He sees another comrade paralyzed from the waist down. Jimmy, after that night, he was going through it. He spent the next few years suffering through PTSD. Every time he would wake up, he would check under his bed, check the locks on the doors, then he would go back to sleep. He would wake up and he would do it again. Jimmy was reliving his nightmare every day, no matter if he was awake or asleep. One day, Jimmy receives a phone call. It was from a tutor from the university he was just previously enrolled in. They were doing a study on victims who suffer from PTSD and putting them in virtual reality simulations. So people in the study had different things going on, whether it was people that had car accidents, had been through mugging, war victims, etc. When they put Jimmy in this isolation, they gave him a propped M16 rifle, and they put some VR headsets on him. Now, Jimmy was a little reluctant to open his eyes, but he heard a loud flash, and he couldn't help but to open his eyes. When he opened his eyes, he saw a helicopter fly over his head. He saw soldiers running to the distance, shooting guns at the other enemies. He saw grenades blowing off from the distance. He could even see the artillery shells hit the floor. Jimmy was reliving his worst nightmare right there, like he was right back in Iraq. After 6 weeks of putting him through this controlled environment, he was actually cured of his PTSD, and he doesn't even remember the last time he even had a dream about Iraq. Virtual reality has a reported success rate of up to 90% with those with PTSD. It has even shown great significance with those with pain relief. In one study in behavioral medicine, burnt victims were sent to a snowy world. Now, the world was beautiful. Snowy mountains, you could see the snowflakes fall, you could build snowmen, even have a snowball fight. What they found was that their pain was significantly reduced between 35% and 50% just after a few weeks. It's funny because when people talk to me about virtual reality, they kind of talk to me about, I guess, a video game. And in my life, I realized that life is like a video game. You know you're going the right way, the more enemies you encounter. I think when it comes to a lot of the things that I learned from Hope, it also transpired to when I went to Virginia Commonwealth University and was able to become a RAM. I was feeding the homeless every Sunday mornings at 8 a.m., but one morning in particular I'll never forget. This man named Quincy walked up to me, and it was my first time meeting him, but I could tell he was homeless because he had a lot of rips and tears on his clothing. He started talking to me about his life, and it was so traumatic an experience. It really showed me how much men in general are suffering from mental health in the world. His story started off as a successful stockbroker. He had a lovely wife, kids, home. He would often tell me about how his son would play baseball and basketball, how he was able to go to his daughter's first dance recital. Jimmy had a great life. One day, he just loses his job. And everything from there started going downhill. He lost his house, the car, his money, his possessions. Everything fell through. And I asked Quincy, I said, can you just give me the bottle? Can you just give me the bottle and we can just stop? He turned to alcohol and he became alcoholic. And I asked him, can he just stop and give me the bottle? And he looked me in my eyes and said he can't. And it was that traumatic experience that really showed me that just how much pain people are going through within mental health. And like I said before, VR is not new to mental health. There's even other studies where people are getting cured of their traumas, their phobias, They did one study in a VR app where they gave a lot of people that had fears of things like needles, dogs, and phobias, and they put them in a VR setting to overcome those fears. And what they found is that those people in the study had a reduction of their trauma and phobias within 73% within 3 weeks. Marcus Aurelius once said that the key to happiness relies within the mind. It's not the external possessions or life achievements that give us, that gives us our loving, lasting life, but the quality of thoughts and our state of our mental health. Cultivate positive and virtuous thoughts, and you will find that even through adversity, you will find contentment. And if during this tumultuous journey you find yourself depressed, then you're living in the past. If you find yourself anxious, you're living in the future. Well, you find yourself at peace, you're living in the present. Through peace, you'll undoubtedly stumble yourself into genuine happiness. But always remember that the key and secret to happiness is not found by seeking more, but developing the capacity to enjoy less. Your inner peace will always be the trump card towards your outer enemies, so make sure you're taking care of your mental health. Because I believe having a strong mental health is essential for conquering life's adversities, and I believe that virtual reality will play a pivotal role in that journey. Thank you.
Wasn't that something? Virtual reality for mental health. Who would have thought you could have put those two together? I just had a couple of strokes of inspiration from that presentation. So, 2 speaker sessions down and 1 to go. At this time, we will be having our second food and networking period. Our final speaker session now begins at 1:50 p.m. So at this time, please feel free to enjoy the camaraderie of your other attendees, have some food, meet sponsors, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.